Hello and welcome. My name is Mike Marinas. I am a chiropractor, and today we are going to be talking about routines in lockdown. We find ourselves in South Africa in lockdown in this situation at the moment where it's different. It's potentially a little weird. It's a little scary. We don't quite know exactly what tomorrow brings or what the future will hold. And doing that with children can be quite an experience. So we have brought on psychologist Nicole Canin. How are you doing?
Good. How are you, Mark?
I'm not too bad. All right. So today I would love for you to take us through flexibility in routine. How do we get flexibility in routine?
Well, we were talking earlier, and I think one of the reasons we chose this topic is because a lot of my friends, a lot of my kind of parents that I work with have been kind of saying, what am I meant to be doing? I'm stuck at home, I'm homeschooling, we're indoors, we're trapped. How much routine am I meant to be kind of putting in my kids' day? How much flexibility should I be giving them? And I think, it's really got me thinking about these questions, and we're going to talk about some kind of general guidelines, but I really hope that what parents take from this is the idea that actually structuring your kids' day is going to take a lot of thinking around who your child is and what your child needs based on some kind of just basic guidelines.
Okay, and these are really important because it's not a one size fits all idea here. You actually need to take these ideas and place them into your own setup to be able to work out what's going to work for you, because everyone has a different parenting style. Some people have kids that are really hyper. Parents have kids that are really, really relaxed. And I think it's an interesting mix. And I think it's going to take thoughtfulness to be able to apply these guidelines, to be able to get to a routine that works for everyone, which I think is what we're looking for at the end of the day.
Absolutely. So look, I think there's some key things that your kids should have in their day. And I think these are some of the things, kind of key principles to kind of keep in mind. I mean, we all know it's not ideal. No, it's not ideal that your child spends the entire day on a screen. That's going to be pretty unhelpful. And I think that we know from a brain development perspective, but also just a kind of kids needing to feel productive in their day. I don't think, often as parents, we don't realize we want to feel productive. We want to feel like we've achieved something. Yeah. And I think that children actually are the same. As much as they think that they would love to sit in front of a screen all day, there's something so passive about that experience that actually leaves them at the end of the day feeling like they didn't really achieve much.
Yeah.
So I think that, I guess the first obvious thing to talk about is how to kind of limit screen time. Now, there are general principles that I think apply in everyday life. Most principles at the moment have kind of flown out the window, but maybe just to kind of have a general guideline. Most of the time, so like the American Pediatric Society kind of says, children between the ages of 3 and 5 shouldn't have more than an hour of screen time a day. Yeah. And kind of older children, not more than 2. Now, that may not be real, right? But I do think it kind of suggests that there should be limitations. There needs to be limitations. So I guess that's the one piece. We know it's obvious, vitality tells us kids should be active. And I think that that's quite hard at the moment, being indoors. Not everyone has a garden, not everyone has access to an kind of outdoor, but I do think parents will find life a bit easier if they can create some time in the day, putting on music in the kitchen, everyone kind of does a bit of a dance, where they can get rid of some of that excess energy. I do think that's quite important, and you may have to be a bit creative in working that out, but I do think that's an important piece. And I also think that I would suggest creating time where kids can just be, and they're going to drive you nuts to begin with, most likely. I'm bored. Yeah. But I think there's something very powerful about giving kids time to work out that they can be creative, that they can work things out. Hey, what happens when I do this? And often the most amazing things can happen if kids are just left. Well, no, I'm not necessarily saying unsupervised, but to just work it out. I do think that there's something about having kind of unstructured time that they kind of get to be the boss of, that is actually very important and needs to be in the mix as well.
Yeah, like they talk about having structured play and then open play, and that's almost like an open play place where you can then be expressive and you can be creative and you can put different things together because you're not held in by rails all the time.
Right. And you can kind of work out what you enjoy and what you like. And so actually, you know, whilst routine is important, and I think it can be very helpful, and we're going to talk about the kinds of kids that need it a little bit more than others, but I think that parents shouldn't overstructure their kids' days. Kids should be allowed time to work, to kind of just discover, what do I like? And what am I capable of creating if I'm just given a bit of time and space?
I like that. I do like that. Now, you alluded to it now. There are different kinds of kids and they're going to need different kinds of routines. And to be able to put those in place is going to take a little bit of thought.
Absolutely. I think that what we know is kids that are more anxious, kids that are more hyperactive, kids that get overwhelmed more easily, kids that are sensory, those kinds of kids are definitely going to feel safer in their day, more in control, if that day is a little bit more structured. So if you have a kid that kind of gets overwhelmed much more easily in whatever capacity, I would say to you, you can really use structure as a tool to help regulate your child. Okay. And it's not just about setting up the structure, but it's about communicating that structure. You know what, today we're going to do this, and then from that time we're going to play, you know, and then we'll have lunch, and then we'll have this activity. And whilst you don't have to be rigid about that, I think in the same way as if you think about the level of uncertainty, the amount of anxiety that's creating for us as adults, children are exactly the same. If you happen to be a more anxious or a more overwhelmed child, it can be huge comfort in understanding, okay, that's what my day is going to look like. Yeah. So, and that's going to be much more important for that kind of kid than another kid who maybe, you know, is happy to entertain themselves, and, you know, that kind of kid might need a little bit of guidance, but not as much as the other type of child. And so I also think that the amount of structure in your kid's day may be different depending on the kinds of kids that you have.
And I think that's exactly where it is. You need to work out what kind of kids do you have, what relationship do you have, what kind of parenting are you bringing to the table as well, I suppose is quite important, because this is a mix of the two at the moment, and it can be a very volatile mix, or it can be quite a harmonious mix, depending on if there's a lot of thought put into how exactly are we going to plan this, how our routine coming forward, how much flexibility do we require to be able to both make it through this, and to be able to make it through this in a way that benefits both of us.
Right. I think that you have to be real. So the one part we said, you have to think about who your child is, but you have to be very real with yourself about who you are. Yep. So if you can only function in a more structured kind of environment, I think you have to be real about that.
Sure.
You know, and because I think that our kids are really needing us to be as aware as possible of the kind of environment that they're existing in. So if I'm going to feel calmer knowing that I have a bit more structure in my kid's day, well, then I've got to put that in the mix, you know. Sure. If I'm someone who's a bit triggered by structure and who's going to find it hard, well, I'm going to find it difficult to convince my kid that that's something that's helpful for them. So I definitely think that who you are as a person is for sure in the mix.
They're not going to buy that for half a second.
No,
kids
absolutely.
are fantastic like that. They'll work you out in a heartbeat. Okay, so at the end of the day, it's a hard time to be, you know, just as we are at the moment, but it is a hard time to parent. And like you said, we need to be real about it and maybe cut ourselves a little bit of slack.
Yeah, I think absolutely. Listen, parenting is hard, full stop. Parenting under the current environment is particularly challenging. And we know parenting requires thoughtfulness. In other words, helpful parenting requires thoughtfulness. It requires awareness of who our kids are, awareness of who we are, and all that needs capacity. And I think we have to be honest that a lot of people don't have much capacity at the moment. They're stretched, they're overwhelmed, they're anxious. And I think that it's about being real about that, you know. And I think that never before has it been so important that parents reach out for a support when that's needed. If you're not coping, if you're finding it hard to be thoughtful about your kids, if you're finding it hard, if you yourself are very consumed with anxiety. And I think that's part of the campaign that, again, we're trying to put together, saying this is hard, but it doesn't have to be hard in isolation. And we really are, I guess, wanting to kind of say to parents, if you're wanting to reach out for support, these are the avenues, and we're going to make that available. I'm going to be making that available on social media, but these are the avenues that you can use. Yeah. But I guess what we're saying is be real. Be real if you're struggling, because it is hard. It's really hard at the moment.
No, absolutely true. Well, look, I think we hit a couple of really good points there in terms of routine, in terms of how thoughtfulness plays a key role in how you organize your routine and how you organize yourself as a parent, and how you then go about organizing your child's day and your child's routine, and thinking about putting their needs in there, having your needs inside the mix as well, and trying to sort of steer the boat towards wherever it is that we're going at the moment. And then at the end of the day, realizing that needing help is maybe in the mix as well. And if you do need help, the help is there, and much rather that you go and have a look for it first. Right. Because there are wonderful people like Nicole that are out there that are very, very happy to be able to give you perspective and help you through troubling times. So I thank you very much, Nicole Canin. It's been wonderful to chat to you. Fantastic. And this is going to be a series. So yeah, we will be back. We'll be back soon with another topic.
With our next topic. Absolutely. Thanks, Mark.
Wonderful.